This is cool, right? She says. What registers is the packet of light passing through his left cornea. It refracts 40 diopters past his iris, 20 more past his lens, flecking potassium ions off a cluster of cones in his fovea. Having spent hours in the colorless world of an airplane's night, all 5 million cones shake like naked girls in a humid rain. Positive ions shimmy down the depolarized receptor and spray proteins into the synapse that are snatched up by other hungry proteins on the waiting bipolar neuron, their digestion taking 0.002 seconds before they are hungry again. Bipolar to ganglion, down the optic nerve, across the chiasm, then to his thalamus, passing the depolarization into the third layer of his first optic tract and his right visual cortex on wires firing always and only at 520 nanometers. Elapsed time, about 0.12 seconds. The dust as weightless as the train platform, as the building, and as her hand. Other cells fire too, triggered by unsteady light movement. Distant, alternate pathways converge on the signal with predictive possibility. Successive patterns, synchronous patterns, attempt to keep the signal down, to know it, and to ignore it. Of the many possible unsteady 520 nanometer greens, this one is the lime-colored tail of her wool jacket snapping forward with the gust from the train. The signal passes up, up, up into deeper connections where inputs from other pathways intersect. The green is also her luggage, collected in the airport a few minutes ago, and the envelope of her birthday card, with tickets for this very trip, her first to Manhattan. And the pillowcase at his mother's house, a train ride away. And the company logo he was creating when he first saw her in his office building to pick up one of his coworkers, her old boyfriend. And the flyers for his band's show that she snuck out to see. And her underwear in the hotel room after. And the apple he was eating when that old boyfriend threatened to kill him and her for their betrayal. And the gum he was chewing when he told her he didn't have time for a relationship back then, and a kite on the beach in a wind that would snap her wedding dress sometime in the future when he can see himself holding her and repeating words that bind. All over his brain now, nerves are chattering in the following proportions. 42% the green of that flapping coat, 31% the sound of the incoming train, 12% the smell of body odor, 8% the advertisement on the wall, 6% the stiffness of his back, 1% the feeling of the clothing on his skin and the pace of his breathing and the movement of his hair, and the temperature and the voices around him that are all muffled and insignificant, yet monitored and measured still by that little linking organ between the nervous and endocrine systems, the hypothalamus, the master gland. It watches all, reuptaking and re-releasing its chemical messengers into the blood, triggering the sympathetic and parasympathetic pads of stress and sweat, attentive hairs, thumping heart, calm, hunger, thirst, relief, up and down and up and down. Elapsed time, about 2.24 seconds. He still feels absolutely nothing discernible. More nerves signal the presence of these internal messages, back in a feedback loop, pairing them in a causality he feels as stimulus plus good and stimulus plus bad, matched to the past, the present, or the future. Hope that he will see her flapping coat again like this. Fear of her jacket pulling her into the tracks. Pride that she agreed to this trip at all. Terror that she will say no when he tells her in the dark of his mother's house how much he has thought of her these past couple of years. Elapsed time about 0.32 seconds. At the age of 25, based upon my calculations, which I won't bore you with, he's had approximately 157,680,000,000 times 10 to the 9th to the power of 9 thoughts. And his brain holds the notion of other brains as well. He knows that in hers there are people and buildings and careers and mountains and pancakes and arguments and bicycles and gnats and healthcare and a million other wonderful and horrible tidbits of life, but to him in this moment there is only the black edge of the end of the world and a white expanse between him and her. And so his brain shoots an efferent signal down his spine, a bullet train connecting to a smaller train leading to his wrist flexor muscles that pump calcium ions across the divide to the skeletal muscles whose fibers slide over each other, and his hand contracts and squeezes her so that she looks back up. Isn't it? She repeats. Beautiful, he says, and the dust falls and their dead skin cells fly from his hands, sucked into the wind behind the passing train.